Good afternoon and welcome to my simulated presentation of mindfulness education. So to begin with this professional development exercise, what I would like to do is to start with an into activity to get all of my simulated audience members interested in the topic. So the first thing that I would have done is to pass out the self-quiz of how mindful are you. And it's about 6 different questions. People would just rate themselves on their own personal mindfulness, what they think they're doing right now, 1 through 10. Now this quiz is completely ungraded. There's no punitive, anything attached to it. This is just for people's own self-knowledge and also to get them to start thinking about the presentation which I am about to give. So if I had given this quiz, I would give people about 4 to 5 minutes while I would quietly stand up here waiting for them, or perhaps I would monitor around in the room a little bit. When people started to look up, then I would ask people to put their pencils down and just kind of move that paper to the side for the moment and go ahead and start the verbal portion of the presentation. Okay, so now we've simulated taking the quiz, and I have just gone ahead and taken a nice deep breath. So let's go ahead and begin. Mindfulness education. Okay, so the definition of mindfulness education is to pay attention, or mindfulness rather, to pay attention on purpose. That's very important. In the present moment and without judgment. So what does that mean? So as humans, we are very complex, and our brains are capable of doing lots of things at once, and boy do we take total advantage of that in our 21st century society. We're always multitasking. So we live at once in the present, in the future, and in the past. And what does that look like? That means that while I am giving a lecture to my class, I can also be rehashing an argument that I've had with my husband the night before. At the same time, I also have the ability to mentally make a shopping list for the groceries that I need to pick up after school. Well, that's not being very mindful of my present place and time. So to be mindful means to be focusing all of your complete concentration at one time, on purpose, in the present. That is a very powerful thing, and something that as teachers we would love to see in our students, and I'm sure the students would love to see it in their teachers as well. So why is this important? Mindfulness practices enhance the very qualities and goals of education in the 21st century. So recently we have adopted the Common Core, and the Common Core is an attempt to get students to work with more academic rigor. At the same time, they're supposed to be thinking on a deeper level, thinking critically much more. They're also supposed to problem solve so much more. Mindfulness education helps with that. It also helps with attentional and emotional self-regulation, as well as empathy and compassion, which is important for working in teams and cooperative learning. What does the research say about mindfulness education? Well, according to a study of at-risk youth, decreases in hostility and general and emotional discomfort have been reported, while qualitative data indicates improvements in academic performance, as well as interpersonal relationships, stress reduction, and physical health. So, I'm a teacher first, and I teach art, which means that to me, art is very important. But what is more important when I'm teaching art is that I'm teaching art to a whole student. That student might be stressed. That student might be dealing with things outside of the classroom that I have no knowledge of. And if we're working on mindfulness education at the same time that I'm also teaching my subject matter, I'm giving the student tools to understand art as well as tools to help them de-stress, to help them have a little bit more resiliency in their life, and to help them be more aware and be able to take a step back before they make any choices in their lives. Okay, these are the ABCs of mindfulness. Easy to remember, right? So A is for awareness. So the first thing that we want in mindfulness education is become more aware of yourself. You just take a breath. Become a little bit more aware of who you are, where you are, how things are going with you. The second thing is B, just being. Again, in the 21st century, we are extraordinarily busy. We've got a lot of things to deal with, and we have a lot of distractions. Distractions all around. We've got cell phones, we've got on-demand movies and TV, laptops, iPhones, everything you could possibly need, and maybe a little bit too much. So just being requires a little bit of practice. We also have C, which is seeing things and responding more wisely. More importantly, creating a gap between something that has happened and responding to it and having a little bit of time to respond more wisely. Let me give you an example of that one. It would be wonderful if when an adolescent hears another adolescent calling him or her a name, instead of just immediately responding, they could take a moment, take a breath, and take a step back, and then think about what they could do instead of just jumping in and doing something that they might regret later. So the ABCs of mindfulness education also dovetail quite nicely into the social emotional learning competencies. Social emotional learning competencies are a little bit broader spectrum, and these are the very important non-cognitive aspects. These are things that are going to help students to have a little bit more success cognitively, but also they're going to allow the student to become more successful individuals later in life. And as you can see, self-awareness is right there, social awareness is right there, and the responsible decision making dovetails very nicely. So let's look at how this works in the classroom. This is something that hopefully my simulated audience can take away for their classroom use. So for A, we're going to use a breath as a focus point. And this is where I would ask my wonderful simulated audience to join me in a little bit of guided practice. So the first thing we're going to do is just to use a visualization exercise, and we're going to focus on our breath. We're going to consciously inhale. You can close your eyes if you'd like, or you can keep them open if you feel a little self-conscious. We're going to consciously inhale and imagine that you're inhaling air that is green. Green is very symbolic for freshness, nature, all kinds of good green things. So you're just going to go ahead and take a nice deep inhale, breathing in all of that nice greenness, and then on the exhale, you're going to exhale out a smoky gray. And the smoky gray is going to symbolize junk that's in your mind. Held that breath for a while. Junk that's in your mind is maybe not necessary. So you're not going to be judging yourself on the junk. You're just going to be breathing in the fresh green and exhaling out all of that gray, smoky, unnecessary clutter. Everybody has it. It's not right or wrong, but perhaps sometimes it's not helpful, so we're just going to breathe it away. So everyone, let's go ahead and do it together, all my simulated people. Breathing in green and breathing out smoky gray. Just let it go. Okay? Okay, so for B, I'm already feeling more calm. So for B, it's just being. Now this runs very contrary to our current society, I think. So just being and not doing something. So at the beginning of class, I'm just picturing the after lunch crowd. This would be my 5th period class. And maybe you all have had that 5th period class that comes in a little bit rowdy after lunch. They've just had sugary drinks and they're all hot and, running around and everything. And it's kind of hard to get them to focus on your lesson plan. So instead of being frustrated about the time that you're wasting, take a little time to not do anything. It runs a little counterintuitive, I know. But it's a really good idea to maybe just turn off the lights. Take a few moments to relax, just breathe, just be, and go ahead and relax your body. Take a quick body scan, go from your head down to your shoulders, just kind of touch in base with all of your body, and you'll find at the end of all of that that your class is a lot more calm, focused, and because of that small replenishing moment of doing nothing, they're ready to do. Another option for those who have perhaps a very active class, or maybe this should be done in the morning when your 1st period people come in and they are not awake. I know I have a lot of teenagers that are not quite awake. Take them on a walk, 5-10 minute walk. This isn't going to ruin a lot of lesson plans, but you do have to make a little time for it. Encourage them to try to feel the ground beneath their feet and just focus on the act of walking. And even though all of those little things are going to come into your mind and out of your mind, just try to consciously again and again and again focus back to the walking. All right, and this one is C. C is my favorite. So C is seeing things. So the example that I found on mindful.net was to contemplate a raisin for 10 minutes. So I immediately thought, why a raisin? Why wouldn't you do this with an M&M or a delicious piece of candy of some sort? But the answer is because a raisin is sort of the unsung hero, something that you know but you stopped appreciating. So if you take 10 minutes to really hang out with a raisin, you look at it, consider it, let your mind really delve into all of the wrinkles and think about its past history and how it came to be there on your desk and whatnot. You're really going to find that you're going to have enough things to think about just with that one raisin for 10 minutes. And at the end of that 10 minutes, you would of course let your students eat those raisins, and they would be amazed at how much they can enjoy the raisin. They'll remember how sweet it is, and they'll appreciate the texture of it and the taste of it and how it helps to satiate them, etc. Now, as an art teacher, this is very applicable to my course, and what I would do with this is called close observational drawing. Close observational drawing can be done, again, with raisins. It can be done with any sort of food or any other small object. And again, instead of just staring at it and being one with it, you would do that through drawing. So it's a little bit more of a physical response, and this is perhaps better for those kinesthetic learners who have a little bit more trouble sitting and contemplating. This is maybe a little bit more beginning step. So you would draw, and you would draw, and you would draw. You draw it from the side, from the front, from the top, from the bottom. You really consider that raisin from all points of view. While you draw, then you would really be thinking the entire time of the raisininess of that raisin. And in the end, the important part is not the beautiful drawing that happens. The important part is the journey that you took to really focus and contemplate. So I put this one in here for my good friends, the English teachers, because I know everybody enjoys journaling. The great thing about journaling is it's very much a mindful thing to do, and it doesn't have to be only an English class to do this. You could do this in any subject as far as I'm concerned. When the students come in, make it a practice that they spend 5 minutes or so just doing a free write, or maybe they're chronicling their inner speech. Inner speech is that constant narrative you have going on in your head. Mine is constantly going. So just to get it out of your head and onto the paper can be very cleansing because it's out of your head, and now you've got all that extra space in there to focus on what needs to be done. So other than doing journaling at the beginning of class, it is also a really good idea to do the journaling after a presentation has been made and before a discussion. So it's a little break, but it can also refocus. So instead of doing it at the beginning, you could focus on the questions, what matters here? So if you've just had a presentation, what matters here? The second one, where are you now? Speaking of these journaling ideas, I would at this moment ask all of my simulated audience members to turn over their self-quiz and to look at this space that's called journal space. And then they'll notice that these focus questions are on that paper as well. And I would give them a quiet 3 to 5 minutes to just go ahead and jot down ideas. So again, what matters here in this time, in this space? And number 2, where are you now? Where are you with the idea of mindfulness education? And again, I would try really hard to give them a quiet moment to reflect on the journaling activity. Okay, they've had time. So, the benefits of mindfulness education. For teachers, you've got increased responsiveness to students' needs. If you are being a mindful teacher, then you are constantly in this present time, in this present space, completely and totally focused. How great is that for your students? That means that you can become so much more responsive to their questions and their needs. You can more quickly assess as you walk around what they are getting and what they aren't getting and what you might need to reteach. So it's pretty helpful. It also supports stress management and reduction. I know that in my practice, I can sometimes get a little bit stressed when students are not fully appreciating the wonder that is my subject matter. It also helps to enhance the classroom climate. It's really important as a teacher to model the behavior that you are looking for, and as a calm and in-charge person who's being reflective and mindful, the students will pick up on that and will mimic that behavior. Speaking of the students, they've got benefits as well. So benefits for students are strengthening attention and concentration, and that is a big one. This is one that as a high school teacher, I struggle with. Some students, they're able to focus and concentrate, but after a little bit, you can see that they're starting to wander. So this is a wonderful practice for helping that concentration to go a little bit longer every single time. Also reduces anxiety. This is great for doing something, maybe a breathing exercise before a test, but also anxiety in general. Teenagers, all adolescents tend to be a little bit anxious. They tend to be very self-critical, and we want them to have a reduced sense of anxiety. It also improves classroom participation because hopefully we're quieting down all of those extra little thoughts that are, they're judging me, I'm not good enough, etc., and they're feeling a little bit more confident and able to participate in those classroom discussions. And last, it regulates negative emotions, and that is a wonderful thing, especially for adolescents. So what are the challenges to mindfulness education? Well, there are some. Number 1, there's a lack of consistency in approach and implementation because all of these little tricks and techniques that I've shown you, they can be adapted for every different classroom. But that does, of course, mean that even though they can be adapted and independent and everyone can do their own thing, students are not getting that all-over consistent approach. So that can be a drawback or a challenge to the mindfulness education. A way to overcome that is for a school to go ahead and use one of the mindfulness programs that is out there. There is one called Learn to Breathe, which is at learntobreathe.org, and they have a comprehensive curriculum that can help all of the high school and junior high school teachers to work together on that. The second challenge is really just a personal challenge that teachers often think of, and that is concern about students' response and participation. We worry, don't we? Whenever we're doing something new, we worry just like the students do. Will they enjoy it? Will they be part of this? Will they participate? Or instead, will they laugh and put their head down and think about something else? All I can tell you is that you've got to try to move forward and try to embrace new things. And then if it doesn't work out, just take a breath and let it go.